Hopes for a summer thaw on the Korean Peninsula vanished this week, as the fragile peace that many had wished for seemed to slip further out of reach. The border, already one of the most heavily fortified in the world, remains a stark symbol of division and distrust between the two Koreas. On July 28, 2025, North Korea publicly and sharply rejected South Korea's latest offer for dialogue, dashing hopes for renewed engagement. The announcement came during a highly publicized government press conference in Pyongyang, where officials made it clear that reconciliation was not on their agenda. Kim Yo-jong, the influential sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, took center stage. She dismissed Seoul's proposal as a foolish trick, accusing the South of conspiring with the United States to gain military advantage. Her words were sharp and uncompromising, signaling a deep mistrust of South Korea's intentions and a refusal to consider any form of negotiation under current circumstances. Pyongyang's official statement went further, declaring that it has no interest in talks with the current South Korean administration, whom it views as hostile and untrustworthy. The North's leadership emphasized that any future engagement would require a fundamental change in attitude from Seoul. In response, South Korea expressed deep regret over the rejection, but reiterated its long-standing position that dialogue remains the only viable path to lasting peace and stability on the peninsula. Officials in Seoul called for patience and persistence, urging the North to reconsider its stance for the sake of both nations' futures. For many ordinary South Koreans, the news was a painful reminder of the deep, persistent divide that has separated families and communities for generations. The sense of disappointment was palpable, as hopes for reconciliation gave way once again to uncertainty and anxiety about the future. International observers and analysts see this latest development as a clear sign of North Korea hardening its stance. Many point to Pyongyang's growing ties with Russia and China as evidence that the regime is seeking new alliances, further isolating itself from the West and complicating efforts to restart talks. With communication channels now severed and trust at an all-time low, the Korean Peninsula finds itself locked in a dangerous stalemate. The once promising Inter-Korean Liaison Office now stands empty, a silent testament to missed opportunities and the enduring challenges of peace in this divided land. Today's tensions are rooted in the peninsula's tragic division after World War II. The Korean War ended in 1953 with an armistice, not a peace treaty, leaving North and South technically at war for over 70 years. South Korea became a vibrant democracy, swinging between conservative and liberal governments, each with a different approach to the North. Conservatives, like President Yoon, favor deterrence and a strong U.S. alliance. Liberals have tried engagement and economic cooperation. This policy whiplash creates volatility and deepens distrust in Pyongyang. North Korea, under the Kim dynasty, has prioritized regime survival and nuclear weapons. Pyongyang sees Seoul's shifting politics and U.S. alliance as proof that engagement is fleeting and insincere. This history of war, division, and distrust underpins today's crisis. The past year has seen a dangerous escalation of provocations between the Koreas. South Korean activists sent balloons north with leaflets and USB drives. North Korea retaliated with balloons full of trash and filth. These bizarre exchanges dragged relations to new lows. In response, Seoul suspended a 2018 military agreement and resumed loudspeaker broadcasts of K-pop and anti-regime messages across the DMZ. Pyongyang finds these broadcasts infuriating, as they threaten its information control. Meanwhile, North Korea has ramped up missile tests, often timed with U.S.-South Korea military drills. Seoul and Washington have responded with their own shows of force. Each move triggers a countermove, fueling a perilous spiral of escalation. The peninsula is now at its most volatile in years. North Korea's rejection of talks is a calculated move, not a tantrum. Pyongyang views President Yoon's government as hostile and sees the U.S.-South Korea alliance as a direct threat. The war in Ukraine has drawn North Korea closer to Russia, reducing its need for engagement with Seoul or Washington. Pyongyang now supplies Russia with munitions and receives food, fuel, and diplomatic cover in return. North Korea's main goal remains direct talks with the U.S., sidelining Seoul. Publicly rejecting South Korea reinforces the regime's image of strength at home. Dialogue is seen as risky, potentially undermining Kim Jong-un's authority. The regime justifies hardship as necessary for defense, tightening its grip on power. For Pyongyang, talks with Seoul offer more risk than reward. Political and military tensions have real consequences for ordinary Koreans. In the south, millions live under the constant threat of conflict with frequent missile alerts and air raid drills. In the north, resources are diverted from food and healthcare to weapons, worsening chronic shortages. Humanitarian cooperation and family reunions have ceased, leaving separated families with fading hopes. The economic impact is felt in the south as well, with investor anxiety and a Korea discount on markets. Tourism and border economies suffer, and the risk of sudden escalation is a constant drag on prosperity. The unresolved conflict exacts a hidden tax on both societies. The Korean crisis is a global concern, not just a regional one. The peninsula is a vital economic hub. Any conflict would disrupt global supply chains and markets. North Korea's nuclear arsenal challenges non-proliferation efforts and threatens regional and U.S. security. If Pyongyang's nuclear brinkmanship succeeds, it could inspire other nations to follow suit. The standoff is also a proxy for U.S.-China-Russia rivalry, with each side using Korea to advance its interests. With communication cut and military activity rising, the risk of accidental war is higher than in years. A single miscalculation could trigger a catastrophic conflict, drawing in major powers. The world watches the peninsula with growing alarm. With Pyongyang's latest rejection of outreach, Seoul now finds itself at a crossroads, facing a series of tough and complex choices. The stakes are high, and every move is scrutinized both at home and abroad. South Korean leaders must carefully weigh the risks and benefits of each possible response, knowing that the wrong step could escalate tensions or close off future opportunities for dialogue. The most likely and immediate path is to double down on deterrence, strengthening military ties with the United States and Japan, conducting more frequent joint exercises, and showcasing a united front. This approach is designed to send a clear message to Pyongyang. Seoul is prepared and resolute, unwilling to be intimidated or caught off guard. It also reassures the South Korean public and international allies that the government is taking security seriously. Alternatively, Seoul could consider a bold humanitarian or economic gesture, such as offering aid or proposing new cooperation projects. While this might demonstrate goodwill and a desire for peace, it carries significant risks. Such moves could be interpreted by North Korea as a sign of weakness or desperation, and there is little evidence to suggest that Pyongyang would respond positively. In fact, past attempts at engagement have often been met with suspicion or outright rejection. Another option is to push for tighter international sanctions, rallying the global community to increase pressure on the North. However, without the cooperation of key players like China and Russia, the effectiveness of new sanctions is limited. These countries have their own strategic interests and are often reluctant to fully support measures that could destabilize the region or harm their own relationships with Pyongyang. Given these constraints, many in Seoul advocate for a strategy of strategic patience, maintaining a strong defense posture while keeping the door open to future talks. This approach is cautious, aiming to avoid unnecessary escalation while preserving the possibility of renewed diplomacy if circumstances change. Yet this strategy has its drawbacks. By choosing patience, Seoul risks ceding the initiative to Pyongyang, allowing the North to dictate the pace and terms of any future engagement. The situation remains tense, with both sides watching each other closely for any sign of movement. Ultimately, the hope is that internal changes within North Korea or shifts in the broader geopolitical landscape might eventually open a new path to diplomacy. Until then, Seoul must remain vigilant, flexible, and ready to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances. For now, South Korea is stuck in a holding pattern, managing risk, maintaining readiness, and waiting for an opportunity to break the deadlock. Progress is elusive, and the sense of uncertainty weighs heavily on policymakers and citizens alike. The options before Seoul are all difficult, each fraught with potential pitfalls and unintended consequences. There is no clear or easy path forward, only the hope that careful management and patience will eventually yield a breakthrough. North Korea's rejection signals more than a temporary setback. It threatens the entire diplomatic framework. The belief in dialogue as the only solution is now in doubt. Kim Yo-jong's statement suggests Pyongyang sees talks as a trap, not a path to peace. With back channels and military hotlines dismantled, even minor incidents risk rapid escalation. The dream of denuclearization stalls if talks are impossible, leaving North Korea's arsenal unchecked. The world's strategy of phased trust building is now at a standstill. The focus shifts from peace to risk management as hopes for reunification fade. The peninsula faces an indefinite future of tension and uncertainty. The Korean Peninsula stands on a knife's edge in the summer of 2025, its fate uncertain and its future hanging in the balance. The contrast between the vibrant lights of the south and the darkness of the north is more than just a visual. It's a stark symbol of the deepening divide that threatens peace and stability in the region. Heightened military tension, with both sides on constant alert, has created a situation that is dangerously unstable. The absence of meaningful diplomatic off-ramps means that even a minor incident could spiral out of control with devastating consequences for millions. The risk of accidental or intentional escalation is not just theoretical, it is a daily reality. A single miscalculation, a misunderstood signal, or an unexpected provocation could trigger a chain reaction, leading to catastrophic conflict on a scale not seen in decades. The divide is hardening into what many are calling a new Cold War. On one side stand the United States, South Korea, and Japan, united in their commitment to security and deterrence. On the other, North Korea, Russia, and China form a bloc determined to challenge the status quo and assert their own interests. For ordinary Koreans, this geopolitical standoff is not an abstract issue. It is a daily reality. Families remain divided by barbed wire and ideology, and the hopes for reunification seem more distant than ever. The peninsula has become a fault line in global power struggles, with innocent people caught in the crossfire. In this climate, vigilance and restraint are more important than ever. Yet, the margin for error is shrinking rapidly. Every decision, every movement is scrutinized, and the potential for misunderstanding grows with each passing day. Despite the overwhelming challenges, leaders must keep the door to diplomacy open, however slim the chance may seem. Dialogue, even when difficult, remains the only path to a peaceful resolution. The future of the Korean Peninsula, and indeed the world, depends on the choices made in Pyongyang, Seoul, Washington, and beyond. Every action taken now will shape the destiny of generations to come. Without a dramatic shift in approach, the cycle of confrontation and risk will only intensify. The world watches anxiously, hoping for wisdom and restraint to prevail over fear and aggression. The stakes, for Korea, for the region, and for the world, could not be higher. The choices made today will echo far into the future, determining whether the peninsula moves toward peace or plunges into conflict.